Hello and welcome back to another video from Sam's Finance, where I talk about personal finance, companies and their stocks. This is part 2 of my 3-part series on the technologies I am excited for in the near future. In part 1, I talked about SpaceX's Starship and other spacecrafts for our journey to Mars and for a few other applications. Then I talked about Hyperloop as a concept that brings the advantages and speeds of airliners down to Earth for distances up to 1500 kilometers. The third topic of part 1 was the idea of a desktop as a service, or DaaS, so basically Google Stadia's approach for gaming adapted for everyday desktop PC work. Again, I have chosen the order of technologies in such a way that I consider the first point to be the furthest out in the future and the last point of the list to become relevant soon. In this part 2, I am looking at technology that is probably about 5 years away in my perception. The first technology I want to present to you in this video is the topic of self-driving cars. The idea of a self-driving car is not new, but serious work and developments only started about 10 years ago when Google announced that they were getting into autonomous driving tech. Maybe you still remember these early little white Google cars called Firefly. In 2016, this unit was then renamed to Waymo and spun off into a new division in Alphabet. Since then, Waymo has come a long way in developing self-driving cars. In April of 2017, they launched an early rider program in Phoenix, Arizona, and since November 2019, they began operating without safety drivers that were needed for a long time. However, this service wasn't open to the real public back then, what only changed maybe half a year ago. Since then, you can say that Waymo is operating the world's first truly autonomous driving service in Phoenix, and I think this is great. Although it might take a little while before Waymo offers this service across the USA and later also internationally. This is because Waymo's solution requires great effort both in sensor tech on the vehicle and detailed up-to-date map data. This approach is what separates Waymo and a few others like Zoox from what Tesla started doing in late 2014 with the early and very basic autopilot, but then only really worked on since 2016 when they ended their partnership with Mobileye and installed the hardware version 2 in all new cars. All of these hardware 2 vehicles were promised to be set up for future self-driving that is supposed to come true one day via an over-the-air software update. Tesla's sensor suite is smaller and especially way less expensive, what it has to be since they are mass-producing all their cars with this sensor suite today. Tesla uses ultrasonic sensors that are standard for any car nowadays since they help you to park. Then Tesla uses forward-facing radar. Radar technology is also pretty cheap and common in cars that have adaptive cruise control and emergency brake assists. All Tesla is really adding and integrating to their car design is a bunch of standard webcam quality cameras, 8 cameras in number. Getting back to Waymo, their setup is certainly more sophisticated. Most obvious is the use of 360-degree LiDAR and 3 more LiDAR sensors. Also, Waymo installs more radar sensors than on their car, not just a single one forward-facing. LiDAR is an advanced technology that shoots invisible laser beams through the surroundings, and therefore the car has a precise 3D map of the situation it is in. Also in complete darkness. Tesla's cameras and cameras in general always need light or at least headlights to work. LiDAR has unique features, but is also very expensive and adds a whole new layer of data that has to be processed by the car's computer in conjunction with the video and radar data. When I compare Waymo's and Tesla's approach, then I see it like Waymo is taking the railway approach, so laying tracks and using highly specialized vehicles on them. The track laying, of course, is the compiling of highly detailed map data. Tesla, on the other hand, is more kind of teaching a car to think like a human. We as humans have two eyes only, no radar, no ultrasonic sensors, and no LiDAR, just two cameras basically. In the first thought, it therefore sounds logical that a car should be able to drive itself with just 8 cameras. However, we definitely should not forget what Waymo has done already. They are already operating a public autonomous driving service. Tesla couldn't do this yet. Tesla, on the other hand, will have the advantage of being able to roll out full autonomous driving to hundreds of thousands of cars overnight as soon as the software is ready. This is, of course, if this is ever the case. The rollout for Waymo is way harder because wherever they want to expand to, they got to lay their tracks first. Enough about the technical background now. I would like to explain why I find autonomous driving exciting. Why would self-driving cars be particularly groundbreaking? Since this is a channel on personal finance, the first point has got to be that owning a car is often very expensive and even more expensive than most people think because you don't really account for the depreciation that you don't really see. If you account for every cost from car tax to repairs, then it gets really hard to own an average car for less than 300 euros a month. I'm speaking of a pretty car-friendly country here, like Germany. Compared to the median net income of about 1,500 euros in Germany, that means that most people pay significantly more than 20% of their net income only to maintain their car. A car that is sitting around 95% of the time while also taking up parking space. Space that could potentially be used for much more productive things, or at least housing. Think about how others could use this car that is sitting around for their needs. Car sharing, therefore, is the first step towards mobility as a service. Just like Spotify that offers music as a service, I can picture a future in which Waymo and Tesla offer a mobility as a service by selling you access to their platform of self-driving vehicles. Maybe one day we pay $50 a month for 1 hour of transport a day. This wouldn't just save everyone a lot of money, but also resources and parking space would become available for another use. When using a self-driving car to work, for example, this couldn't only save you money, but also provide you with more time. You could take a nap, have breakfast, or start working on your next project as soon as you enter the car. Also, I think autonomous cars that are accessible through an app 24/7 would be great for the elderly on the countryside. They could make great use of such a service to go grocery shopping, for visiting the doctor or friends. Now, if you combine these points, I think it's fair to assume that a network of self-driving cars will expand the range of motion and therefore might even take some pressure off city centers and make the surroundings and maybe the countryside even more attractive again. Because commuting will be cheaper and it doesn't have to be a waste of time anymore. And that sums up my excitement for self-driving cars pretty much. I would like to introduce the next topic with a question. Do you think we will still be using smartphones in 15 years from now? I'm not so sure about that. To me, a smartphone really is our gateway to the internet. The first gateway were stationary PCs. Then with 3G and smartphones, we pretty much had access to the web everywhere. I think the next step are wearables and or maybe so-called brain-machine interfaces. BMIs are a direct communication pathway between a wired brain of ours and an external device, in this case, the internet. Now, why do we need another gateway after we already have smartphones? The way we communicate with the internet is mostly based on finger work. On the PC or laptop, we use a keyboard and mouse. On the smartphone, we use a smaller screen with an integrated keyboard to type messages, Google stuff, or just navigate through the operating system. From the smart speaker boom around Alexa, HomePod, and Google Home, you can clearly see that sometimes other means of feeding in commands are easier, like voice commands when you are a few meters away from your smartphone, or when you don't want to pick up your cell phone just to know how the weather is going to be. Or when you are cooking and your hands are dirty. In those scenarios, it's just more convenient to use your voice to feed commands into the computer. I think this convenience factor is correlated to the bandwidth with which we can transfer or transmit information. With bandwidth, I mean data transfer rate. When you got your hands dirty in the kitchen, then it would take much more effort to clean your hands, dry them, walk to your phone, pick it up, unlock it, and type in weather tomorrow into the Google search bar, in comparison to using your voice and asking Alexa with your dirty or sticky hands, Alexa, how will the weather be tomorrow? In this case, the data transmission of your voice command is much quicker than using your smartphone. But as you just saw, this highly depends on the situation. I believe this is also the reason why we still use stationary PCs and don't just replace them with tablets or smartphones. When you are writing a text or organizing files, the bandwidth from your brain to the Word file is just greater when you're using a solid keyboard instead of a touchscreen. Now that I got you into this bandwidth thinking, I believe it's pretty obvious that the fastest way would be if you could just think a sentence and it would get written down on the Word document. For this exact reason, one would need a brain-machine interface like the one Neuralink is developing. And up until now, I was just talking about the upload, so getting commands from your brain into the internet or PC. The same advantages can be found on the download side. So you wouldn't need headphones anymore, but just could listen to music without any additional hardware and without anyone else hearing it. The same applies to visual information you receive. Imagine you could watch a YouTube video on your bed without holding a phone in your hands or using a TV. Obviously, those thoughts of mine are pretty long term. Why do I place a topic this far down in my list, meaning I expect it to become relevant quite soon? Well, this year, 2021, we could see Apple entering the AR device space with Apple glasses, but there is no clarity on that yet. What is certain already is that Facebook is coming out with its first smart glasses in cooperation with Ray-Ban this year. However, those are more the kind of smart glasses that we know from Snap's spectacles. No AR, but a pretty low-tech product. Apple could be the pioneer here. Whenever Apple comes out with these glasses, they will most likely start like they did with the Apple Watch. At the beginning, the watch was heavily reliant on its mothership, the iPhone. After a few generations, the watch got more and more independent from the phone by integrating an eSIM, improving CPU and battery runtime. I could imagine the same for potential first generation Apple glasses. At first, they are pretty limited in functionality and can only be used in combination with your phone. But with time, the tech improves and the glasses become more independent. With smart glasses, you will have the possibility of integrating a kind of screen directly in front of your eyes, where you see the time, maybe directions for navigation, and even push notifications from messaging apps. Later, you might even be able to watch YouTube videos on your glasses and read ebooks. Smart glasses enable not only the visual possibilities but due to the construction of glasses, smart glasses could give you a full audio visual experience because the temple of the glasses goes past the ear. The headphone company Bose already developed glasses that have speakers incorporated into the temples, yet the sound quality so far isn't comparable to proper headphones. Another interesting technology for this application are bone conduction headphones. They transmit the sound to the inner ear through the bones of the skull. That way, better sound quality can be achieved compared to the speaker in temple solution, and maybe even more important, any audio that is received by the user is nearly inaudible to outsiders. On top of that, another unique feature of this technology is that because your actual ears are not covered by any kind of headphones, you can consume audio content while maintaining situational awareness, what obviously comes in handy for my proposed smart glass use for the whole day. And by the way, just to show you that this technology could indeed be used for smart glasses, the first generation of Google Glass from 2013 was actually using bone conduction technology. Okay, so for a quick summary, I don't necessarily think we will be using smartphones the way we do today in 10 or 15 years. I could imagine that wearables will gradually become more relevant, especially smart glasses, for the reason that they can combine audio and visual data output so easily. Smart glasses will probably have a problem with the data input though, because how do you enter text messages, for example? We will certainly have to rely on smartphones for that for some more time before something like Neuralink solves the data input problem and replaces smartphones. This brings us to the end of this video. I hope you could take away some new ideas, and if you could, don't forget to like and subscribe, because I look forward to seeing you next week for the final third part of this series about the technology I am excited for in the near future. So thank you very much for watching, and remember, just be lekker. Bye bye.